without further ado, here's Doug.
How's everybody doing? You guys got one more in you? Talk fast? Is that what you're saying? All right, I'm going to set a couple ground rules for the discussion today. I'd really appreciate having a discussion instead of presenting to y'all. So instead of waiting for the mic at the end, if you disagree with something I'm saying or you have a question or you want to heckle me, I have a bunch of old friends in the room, so please, you guys heckle me. All right. Authenticity versus growth are both possible at the same time. I'm going to spoil my entire presentation for you right now. The answer is yes. Thank you very much. All right. Look, the answer is yes, okay? And I think that I was asked to come here today because I work for a brand called Vans, and I think that that some of the people at Group Y believe that Vans is one of the brands that's able to grow and remain authentic. And I'm going to tell you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing up. The first thing I want to say is that it's pretty easy for Vans to be authentic at this point. Did you recognize Steve Caballero and Christian Hosoi sitting up here? All right, I'm the kid in a candy store, right? I'm the kid who grew up reading Skateboarder magazine. You know, I would never say this with those guys in the room, but I had their pictures on my wall when I was a little kid, okay? So is it easier for Vans to be authentic given that we were started in 1966 and we're the original action sports footwear brand? Yeah, that's a pretty nice starting point, you know? And I came into this brand 6 years ago. I started working for Vans in 2004, and it's a lot easier for me than it is for some of you guys sitting out there who didn't have the Van Dorn family spend, you know, almost 40 years building the brand before you show up and take all the credit, all right? So I just wanted to acknowledge that ahead of time. There's a lot of people who have made Vans the brand that it is today, and none of the people who have worked there for the past 6 years can take the credit for the hard work that went into building the foundations of what action sports is today. So I think it's always important to acknowledge that, and it's humbling to us. All right, so I'll start there. Authenticity versus growth. There's an organic tension that exists between those two things, right? So it's important for us in this business to be honest about that and say, oh, I want to stay small, I want to stay core, or you know what, I want to be the biggest brand in action sports. Either way, I would just advocate we've learned in Vans to just be honest about what your intentions are and be honest about recognizing that natural organic tension that exists between authenticity and growth. All right? The other important thing to say before I get started is that I would say that these two things are so intertwined that coming out of action sports, you can't grow without authenticity. You know, I was talking to Gomez before, and he said, "What do you mean? Authenticity is growth." And I think there is something to that. You have to have one for the other. Growth just for growth's sake doesn't make any sense. Don't listen to me saying that. Listen to people who are way smarter than I am who said it. Success is not sustainable if it's defined by how big you become or by growth for growth's sake. Success is very shallow if it doesn't have emotional meaning. I didn't say that. Anybody want to guess who said that? Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz said that. Now think about this for a second. Starbucks equals ubiquity in the United States, right? One on every corner kind of mentality. Actually, almost 17,000 stores in 40 countries. Have they grown just for growth's sake? I would say no, okay? And a lot of people who work there and a lot of people who represent that company would agree with me. Ethisphere, which is a great project that measures brands' ethical being, puts them near the top of their list. And they have an amazing shared planet program where recycling and being sustainable is a big part. Now, I'm not here to tell you guys that Starbucks exists to do good on this planet. They make a lot of money, and you can argue, and a lot of people have, that there's some evil in what they do too. Fine. But at least recognize that they maintain their own ethics and that they have a good reason for being. That's what I'm arguing today. If you want to argue the opposite of that, I'm just going to do it because it's easy. I'm going to throw BP out there. How easy would it have been for them to make sure that that well was safer? How easily could this thing have been prevented? This horrible, disgusting tragedy, right? It would have been pretty easy. It wouldn't have cost them that much money, would it? The billions and billions of dollars that they make every quarter, could they have made that well safer? How about a company like Toyota that built its reputation on the quality and safety of its products? Did they turn a blind eye to that in favor of growing faster and making more money? I think you could make an argument, and their president, which for a Japanese company is pretty gnarly to do, came out and had to publicly say that that's exactly what they did. Okay? So I think when you look at it in those eyes, you can see how Starbucks is doing some pretty good things. Let me give you guys another one. Don't be evil. What is the significance of this phrase, don't be evil? Who knows the answer? It's a company's motto. Which company? It's Google's company motto. How heavy is that? They sat in a conference room and said, what's our motto going to be? And what they came up with, a bunch of propeller head engineers came up with, don't be evil. I'm not going to sit here and say that they haven't done some evil things. Did they placate themselves to the Chinese government by allowing their website to be censored? Yeah. Could you argue that that's evil? Absolutely. And the two founders had to apologize for doing that. But being a $154 billion company, owning 64% of the search market share, and having over 20,000 employees, does Google give back in some really interesting ways? They ask every engineer in their building to take 20% of their time and dedicate it to new projects that they're personally passionate about. So when you go on Google Labs, if you haven't been on this, please go on Google Labs. It's fascinating. That's where they beta things that resonate up and become permanent parts of the Google platform. They built a platform for you to follow the spread of influenza every year to see which strains are impacting what parts of the world and what you can do to protect yourself against it. They don't benefit at all from that. There's no advertising on that part of the site. So they found their own way to be meaningful. Vans today is bigger than it's ever been. I would also argue, respectfully and humbly, that we are more authentic today than we have ever been. And I'm hopefully going to share a little bit of how we got to that point. But I have to start with the evil stuff. And I will tell you that in the long, long, storied history of this amazing brand, that there have been some pretty bad fuck-ups. All right? And the worst of which was bankruptcy, but some other product that we can only laugh about now, and thank God that we have the sense of humor that we do laugh about them now. But Vans has been through a lot of conflicts. Steve Caballero told me a great story in his backyard one day about the day he got a phone call from someone at Vans telling him that they were disbanding the skateboarding team. Imagine a company like Vans disbanding its skateboarding team. And I'll give you some examples of why that happened. I'll tell you a quick story about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I hope everyone in this room has seen this movie. If you haven't, I don't know what to say. Something fascinating happened when Jeff Spicoli banged the checkerboard slip-on top of his head. The phone at Vans started ringing. And Vans overnight became a national sensation. All right? We had no idea when we gave shoes for this film that we were going to benefit like we did. We were not prepared for what came. And what happened as a result, the phone started ringing. We were just a little California brand at that time. Really outside of this state, we were not known. The phone started ringing, and it was retailers, and they wanted to know how fast they could get their hands on our shoes because people were banging down their doors to buy a pair of Jeff Spicoli's checkerboard slip-ons. And we created a litmus test for whether or not we were going to ship you shoes. And the test was, can you fog this mirror? Basically, if you had a pulse, we were willing to ship you as many checkerboard slip-ons as you would like. And that was a cautionary tale because it was just 2 years later, this was in 1982. In 1984, Vans declared bankruptcy. All right? So as quick as the fad came, it went, and before we knew it, we were holding the bag on a massive amount of shoe production for a product that nobody wanted anymore because the next movie had come out and everybody wanted Tom Cruise's Speedos or whatever the next, big thing was. But checkerboard slip-ons weren't cool anymore, and we learned the hard way. Jeff?
Did they get uncool before you could even get them made and shipped to you?
No, we made a lot of money, but then girding ourselves for the production capacity, we were left with all this capital expenditure we had no way to fill once the fad regressed, okay? The moral of that story is that without a clear set of guiding principles, you cannot grow without authenticity. You start casting around in the abyss for any and all ideas. You're blind, you're walking around like this, right? Where's the next cool thing? And here is what the geniuses at Vans came up with. Another cautionary tale. The Vans roller skate. But it didn't stop there. And by the way, if you can get your hands on a pair of these now, get them. They are super collectible. You can make a lot of money on Craigslist and eBay with these. It didn't stop at roller skates. Breakdancing shoes. I have the ad to prove it. Skydiving shoes. Clown shoes. I'm not kidding, we made clown shoes. Cheerleader shoes. We have sets of all this stuff in the office, and again, anything a consumer would ask for, we would make. What is the problem with letting consumers guide the future of your company? Well, again, other people have said it way better than I ever could. This is a guy by the name of Henry Ford. You may have heard of him. He used to make cars. If I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. I think that's a very important statement. Why is it an important statement? Because consumers don't envision the future, they inform the present. So they can go into a store and go, that's cool, I want that. But if you ask them what you should put on the shelf tomorrow, we at Vans would say that you're barking up the wrong tree. All right? So try to keep that in mind. Help to inform what's going on today, but have in your own mind where your company should be going tomorrow. I was thinking about how to explain growth. And I thought back, I've been in this industry since 1988, and I thought back to all the stories I've heard that I've been a part of, that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of in this industry in the past 20-something years. And the best thing I can equate it to from everyone's experience collectively in action sports is that it's like finding out you're going to die. And there is this really weird analogy to the 5 stages of grief. Everyone's heard the 5 stages of grief you go through when you find out you're going to die or someone that's very close to you die. It's a very serious subject. I'm not trying to make light of it. But I think there is a real analogy, and when I get into it, hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. The first stage is denial. How many times have I heard the brand say, Jeff's laughing because he's heard the same thing, we're doing fine. We're going to stay core. We're going to stay small. We don't give a shit about growing. We're down with the cool kids, right? In my mind, that's denial. Not that every company in action sports is seeking to be as big as Vans or Nike or Billabong. Okay, I'm not suggesting that our path is the same, should be the path for everybody else at all. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying there's this kind of catharsis that you go through. The second stage is anger. But I don't want to grow. It's not fair. I don't want to be in the mall. We used to make fun of the kids in the mall. All right? Again, I think you hear this all the time. Then you go through bargaining, which is where you say, why can't we just keep it the way it is? Okay? Now we're getting down to the end here. Depression. Oh, man. I got to tighten up my resume. We've sold out. This isn't cool anymore. We're getting too big, Oh, yeah, I like that band. I like their first album. How many people in this room have said that? Yeah, exactly. Metallica, whatever. We've all had those examples in our mind, right? And action sports is so guilty of the same thing. And so as much as we tell ourselves that we want to be different and that we're our own unique world, I think music's a really good analogy as well. It's like, oh yeah, they used to be good. I used to see them in this little place. They used to play at the Casbah. You know, we've all heard that before. We sold out, so depression. And the final one, acceptance. I can't fight it. I might as well prepare myself to endure the pain of growing, right? All right, so if you're going to endure the pain of growing, if you're going to buy in to getting past these 5 steps of grief and actually saying how you're going to grow, then I think we have something to talk about. And now I'd like to set up your ground rules for growing. Vans, when VF bought us in 2004 and Steve Murray became president, and by the way, I give him a massive amount of credit for being the architect for a lot of this, we took a very disciplined and considered approach to growing. And if you leave here with one thing today, please keep in mind that growing for growth's sake is the easy way to do it. Growing the right way, sustainably, while keeping authenticity at the front of every decision that you make, that's the hard way, but that is the way to be successful. If you believe that Vans is a good example, then it's the Vans way, okay? Our ground rules. Be self-aware. Know who you are as a company. It is shocking to me how many brands I talk to have a difficult time succinctly telling you who they are, what they stand for, what they're good at, what they're all about, what makes them different, what gives them their reason for being. Whatever you do, set those things in stone and live by them. Don't allow yourself to be moved by the prevailing winds either. Stick to your guns and know who you are. Be protective. Take care of your brand. And make sure that the people that are surrounding you in the leadership of your brand do the same thing. All right? Sales guys love to make money. Okay? Now it's easy for me to say I'm a marketing guy, I spend money. Sales guys love to make money. But at Vans, the sales guys are just as committed to discipline and to being protective of the brand as the marketing guys are. I've heard a lot of marketing guys say, oh, we're the brand guys, we take care of the brand. Everybody that works at your company should be responsible for taking care of the brand. Be protective of it. So as big as we've become, I'd say that we are very protective of our brand. And some people in this room have heard us say no a number of times to different ideas. Be disciplined. And I'm talking here about financial discipline. We really set our sights. When VF bought us, we were a break-even company. And we really set our sights on becoming a profitable company. I don't think that growth is sustainable unless you're making money. Okay? So again, when I get back to the beginning about being honest with yourself about growing, be honest that you like to make some money in all of this. Okay? Or not. Or do it out of the goodness of your heart. Or just because you want to sustain your lifestyle, whatever. But be honest with yourself about what those reasons are. For Vans, being disciplined financially has been super critical. Be prioritized. Are there more good ideas out there than there is money to support them? Undoubtedly. Saying no can be harder than saying yes, but get really good at saying no. Saying no is super important in all the other things that we talked about, in being protective and being disciplined, okay? And when you talk about discipline, what you're talking about is a limited amount of resources and how you're going to allocate them intelligently, all right? So discipline is the intelligent allocation of resources. If you can allocate whatever resources you have in the most intelligent way for your brand, you're going to be 9 steps ahead of the brands around you, okay? Countless times, I look at brands and I say, I see that decision that they made, and I know why they made it. They made it because they don't have an ability to prioritize. If it's a good idea and it captures everyone in the room's emotion at the time, they say yes and they go down that path. And then halfway down that path, they hear another good idea and they cut off and go that way. You have to apply yourself to the intelligent allocation of resources. And finally, that leads to sustainable growth. Sustainable growth means that you keep growing every year. Not that this year is going to be a growth year, next year is going to be a flat year, then we'll take a couple years where we'll give a little back, and then we'll start growing again. It's really, really easier to grow if you grew the year before, actually. So try to make it sustainable. Think about your path as being a little bit more on this axis than this axis and then this axis. And Vans, again, going back to our history, we were one of these for a long time. And being more like this, man, that's a lot more fun, I can tell you. Okay? Does that make sense? Good ground rules? When you're done with all that, go back to what I said earlier about brands' failure to succinctly talk about what they're good at. Nothing will provide clarity like the elevator test. Try it sometime. Get on the ground floor, press 5, and before you get to 5, be able to have expressed what your brand does better than anybody else's. This isn't a new concept. People already heard about the elevator test before. I mean, it's been out there. But if you try it, again, trade show environment or an environment like here where you're outside having lunch, what's going on with you guys? What are you up to? And a half an hour later, you realize that person wasn't able to tell you anything about what their brand was really up to. Be able to really express succinctly and in 5 floors what it is your brand does better than anybody else. And keep that focus in your mind and apply it to all of the decisions that you make. And I think you guys will find that that's a nice kind of guiding set of parameters to use. All right? Is this making sense? Yes, no? Argue? Stouffer.
So what would Vans be?
You want me to give you? Vans is the original action sports company. We're rooted in boards and bikes. Our 4 cultural pillars are art, music, action, sports, and street culture. And if we live and die by the quality of our vulcanized footwear. So, and if you asked me to do it again, I'd probably give you a totally different answer. But that's what came into my head when you challenged me. Good job. You challenged me. I like that. I like that, actually. At least somebody's listening. Thanks, John. Let's talk about authenticity for a couple minutes. You got to go to Webster's. You see it in a lot of presentations. There's a reason why a lot of times when you take the time to look at the work that they do, what is it called when you write dictionaries? I can't remember the word, but those people are so good at it to boil it down into a few words of meaning. Take a look at this. Authentic, not false or copied, genuine, real. Does that pretty much say it? Everything you need to know about being authentic? Yeah. If that's not enough, how about this? Having the origin supported by unquestionable evidence. The elevator test. What are you good at? What can you own and defend? What can be yours that's going to be hard for the next set of cool thinking to come in and take away from you? Vans, off the wall. The original action sports company since 1966. If XYZ brand, whether they be from Portland or any place else, come in, attempt to gain market share in our space, is there anything in Vans off the wall since 1966 that another company can take away from us? I would argue that it would be pretty darn hard for somebody to do that, okay? Again, I recognize the fact that we benefit from our heritage, okay? And we play to that, all right? I recognize that we have more than 4 decades of history to play on in our brand. Your brands may not have all of that time behind it to pull from. But whatever it is, whatever you can put under your cool little logo or icon, make sure that it's something that you can call your own and will be hard for somebody to take away. At the end of the day, authenticity has to be ownable and defendable. For Vans, the big thing that we focus on is our heritage. No one can take that away from us. Tony Alva has skated for Vans since he was a little kid. He turned 50 years old. He still skates for Vans. When we go to his memorial service, when he's no longer with us in body on this planet, he will still ride for Vans. So we really benefit from Dogtown. We benefit from all the heritage that we have. But whatever it is for your brand, find that and hold on to it. Find the thing that you can own and defend and keep it at the center of everything that you do. If you do that well, you build a loyal following. And we have a loyal following like I have never seen in a brand before. To the point where people shouldn't have been loyal. I talked about the skydiving shoes, right? I mean, people should have walked away a long time ago, but we've been really, really fortunate to remain loyal. And again, Christian Hosoi, Steve Caballero, Tony Alva, Jeff Grosso, people like that are the reason why Vans has the loyalty that it does, and very, very thankful to be working with those guys. As a result, this is what you see. When you inspire loyalty, you see people taking your brand and making it a part of who they are, all right? This Vans lover, we found this on the Warped Tour. Well, first of all, the guy came out to the Warped Tour with a broken foot. Not an easy day with 2 good legs, let alone with a broken foot. But, he just couldn't wait to get his cast and paint his skate high on his cast. That picture says a lot to me about the relationship that Vans has with its consumers. It's not just Vans, though. Let's think about some other brands, all right? When I talk about Porsche, I love cars. What is authenticity for Porsche? Well, they have a great heritage, for sure, but authenticity for Porsche is performance, right? There's an expectation that they have set that when you get one of those cars, it's going to put your head back in your seat every time you change gears. It's a performance machine. And they've set that expectation, and they try to deliver against that all the time. We were in the SEMA group was in Cabo for a few months back, and we heard an amazing presentation from Blake, from the founder of Tom's Shoes. And for him, authenticity for Tom's Shoes is social and environmental responsibility. And everything that they do as an organization is measured against that authenticity. So it doesn't have to be skateboarding. It doesn't have to be performance. It could be social responsibility. It could be environmental responsibility. Whatever it is, find your own point of authenticity, okay? And try to live by it and give that an opportunity to inspire loyalty for your brand. Okay, so as we dig a little bit deeper into how you can grow, I'm going to try to give you guys some very specific takeaways. Now, again, I'm going to give you the Vans point of view. I don't expect that all these things will work for all your brands, but I can talk about our experience, and hopefully you can apply it to what it is that you do. A fascinating thing about Vans that I think gives us a lot of power is that we are the most widely distributed brand in action sports. I would say Vans and Nike are the 2 most widely distributed brands that currently have a role in action sports. Keith Huffnagel was just up here. Keith is a great Vans supporter. Sincerely appreciate everything he does to add authenticity and help us build our brand. But the fact that we can sell our shoes in Keith's shop and that he's inspired to do collabs with us, and we can sell our product at Kohl's and JCPenney at the same time, speaks to what I'm about to present to you. And that is how to expand your distribution, okay? Vans is able to sell in a number of different sales channels for 2 reasons. The first reason is because there's different types of consumers out there. Some consumers who shop in Undefeated and Supreme, who shop at the Hundreds, who shop at Huff, they want the cool shit you can't get anyplace else. And they're in the know. They read Hypebeast every day. They know exactly what's going on out there. They're not the same consumers that shop at Kohl's. So I think it's kind of an obvious thing, but you have to understand the different consumer types and where they shop. And then you have to segment your product. The way that we're able to grow is through product segmentation. And if you're looking to expand your business, I think it's a critical component. There's no way that we can remain loyal to the boutiques, that we can remain loyal to the independent board sports channel, the guys down the street at Jackson HSS. There's no way that we can remain loyal to our partners in the mall, like Zoomies and Journeys. There's no way we can do all that if everybody gets the exact same product. That just doesn't make sense. I don't know how you could possibly do that and be successful at it. But for Vans, we can't. Special lines just for boutique. Special lines that are just dedicated to people who participate in action sports. Special lines dedicated to mall shoppers, okay, which expands around the country. And in some parts of the country, that's where earlier adopters go shopping because they don't have Huffs and Supremes and Undefeateds in their neighborhood. In the family and sporting goods channel, lines dedicated to that business. And then finally, the dreaded mainstream. Now, Vans has decided that mainstream is as broad as we're going to go. There are brands who go lower. There are action sports brands in Walmart and Target. There are action sports brands at Costco. I have pictures if anybody wants to see them after. But for us, we've decided that Kohl's and JCPenney's is as mainstream as we would like to go. But again, I think product segmentation is a big key to us being able to be successful in all of these channels. Here is Asia, specifically in Beijing, China. On the left, it says Vans, American brand, or something like that. If you read Japanese, please correct me. Chinese, sorry. Thanks, Glenn. If you read Chinese, please correct me. And then this is a flagship store that we just opened in Beijing. So we view Asia as a massive growth opportunity for our business. That's not to say that expanding into China is a massive growth opportunity for everybody in action sports. It takes a lot of local knowledge. It's a partnership-based model. But here's a few things you can follow no matter where you go. The first thing is to own what you can. With all due respect to the distributors around the world who do great work for us and other brands, nothing beats doing it yourself, and we are control freaks. Be protective. When I said be protective is one of our guidelines for growth, that means that we try to have subsidiaries. Where we can't have a subsidiary, there's a distributor, but our subsidiaries are the ones, that's what we own, and we try to own our business. And from Vans' experience, you're better off growing slowly overseas, but owning your thing. Volcom just bought back its Australian distribution. That's what happens. You may, because you don't have the resources, go to a distributor first, but then you're going to want it back at some point anyway, so why not just go there on your own? One world, one brand. How many people have been to a different country and seen product with the same brand name on it that you don't recognize at all? Another cautionary tale. For Vans, it's very important that we have one set of product and one set of marketing that tells our story every place on the planet. That's not to say that the guys from Europe and Asia and South America and Mexico and Canada don't come in to the product line reviews and comment and make sure that our product development and design team knows exactly what we need to do to meet their needs. But that's all done on the front end, so that when the product actually goes to sell in, it's all one identifiable group of product that's sold everywhere in the world. For Vans, that's been very, very important, is that level of consistency. And then finally, our mantra from the marketing side is global consistency, local relevancy. All right? One marketing campaign for the world, and we allow a little bit of flexibility in each market that allows the countries to translate the ads, let's say, insert local riders once in a while, although if we run an ad with cab promoting half cabs, it goes everywhere on the planet, period. Consistency in the messaging all over the planet is critical if you see global expansion as one of your biggest growth opportunities. You can't express yourself. You can't let your counterparts say, but it's different over here. You have to understand those differences and agree on one set of rules that the whole company is going to live by. This is the Vans mentality. Dreaded direct-to-consumer. I start with this picture because I'm going to be really honest with everybody in this room about Vans direct-to-consumer plans. I'm going to be honest with you guys because we're really honest with everybody that carries Vans about what we're doing with direct-to-consumer. So you're not going to hear any surprises today. If you're an account of ours, you're going to have heard this from our sales force already. The picture you see here is where Vans opened its doors in Anaheim in 1966. It was a factory with a retail store on the front of it. Paul Van Doren opened a store, and the first business that we had for the first several years was direct-to-consumer. In the 60s, when no one knew what the heck that meant. Okay? So Vans has been a retailer from day one. I think that's an important thing to get out at the beginning. To this day, we still own a lot of our own retail. The major rules that we live by for our own retail stores is to tell the story about our brand collectively. There's nobody that could put out as much Vans merchandise as one of our own stores. And we think that benefits everybody who sells Vans. Okay? We also are very, very careful about working with our wholesale partners on where those stores go. All right? We're honest and upfront with them about where we're putting stores. Would we put a store on Main Street next to Jack's? No, it won't happen while any of us work there. I promise. We also do not sell on price. It's really, really hard to open your own stores and then buy one, get one, everything in the store. So we don't sell on price. We're there to help people get a grip on our brand. All right? That's why we do own retail. E-commerce. Vans was also one of the first action sports, if not the first, to launch e-commerce. Again, really important route for us because it allows us to communicate directly with the end users of our products. And they know at the end of the day, if they can't find what they're looking for at their local shop, that they can most likely find it on Vans.com. Partner stores. How many people have been into the Billabong Square in Times Square in New York City? That is a partner store. That store was opened by Quiet Flight. Okay? So more and more you're seeing, if we want to open a store next to Jack's, we won't open it. We'll go to Jack's and say, you guys interested in doing this? If you are, you open the Vans store. Okay? You're going to see a lot more partner stores going up. And then finally, shop-in-shops. Telling our brand story inside of the wholesale environment, where we're looking for the opportunity to partner with our key accounts and provide them with the way to tell the brand story. So if we go to Zoomies, we say, we'd like a space here, and then we would like to work with you guys on a build-in that fits your store, where we can show all of our product together and help tell the Vans story in a very Vans way. And hopefully that will increase foot traffic, understanding of our brand, and at the end of the day, make your cash register ring. Okay? It is not easy to be a retailer. Much love and respect to the people who do it. I couldn't do it. Retail is a discipline. It takes a massive amount of operational fortitude to be able to make things happen. And it's a tough row to hoe. So at Vans, we have a group that's dedicated to doing nothing but our own retail. And we also have a lot of respect for the people that we work with on the wholesale side. The final thing that allows us to be our own retailer is that we overinvest in our core culture. And for our core culture at Vans are the independent wholesale shops that have made Vans what it is today. We spend disproportionate funds to ensure that the sell-through of our product puts us at the top of the charts when it comes to the product that we put in one of their stores. Okay? And if you walk down the street here to Main and PCH and go in Jack's, you can see what we think is a pretty good example of it. We a couple months ago put in a new shop-in-shop with working with Ron and Bobby down there, and it was a big investment for us, but it's the right kind of investment for us to make. So for all the dollars that we put into expanding our own direct-to-consumer relationship, we're exponentially spending more on the wholesale side to ensure that our key partners in all of those channels I talked about before are driving their business through Vans and that we're a leadership brand in their stores. Make sense? Just a couple closing thoughts, and then I'll open it up some questions if anybody has one. Growing is risky. You have to get comfortable with it. You have to embrace it. But most of all, you have to learn from it. And I love this quote that I got out of a recent issue of Wired magazine. We know screw-ups are an essential part of making something good. That's why our goal is to screw up as fast as possible, from the director of Toy Story 3. And Pixar is a great example of a company that innovates through taking risks. All right? Being willing to fail is a big part of being willing to grow. As long as you're able to do it fast and hopefully inexpensively, and most of all, to learn from your failures. If going through all of this discussion, if remaining authentic is critical to you as you think about growing, you have to grow without just the financial gain in mind. And I think this quote says it best of all. The most important thing about this quote, before I read it real quickly, is that it came from their 2004 IPO prospectus. This is where you're talking to Wall Street about what the money-making power of your company is. And listen to what one of the founders of Google said. Google is not a conventional company. We do not intend to become one. That's pretty cool. I think we all can embrace that thinking from an action sports culture, right? The company's aim is greater than simply growing itself as large as it can be. I believe large, successful corporations have an obligation to apply some of those resources to at least try to solve or ameliorate a number of the world's problems and ultimately make the world a better place. Now, you may not start your business with that kind of lofty goal in mind. You may not even believe that Google's making the world a better place. That's fine. But if you're actually pledging to remain authentic while you're growing to the size that you want your company to be, and you can keep that authenticity at the center of your thinking as you become bigger, you stand a good chance of success. Thank you very much. Now, who wants to argue? Who has a question or something that they want to say they don't agree with? Whatever, I'm easy. Sean Tomlin.
I don't think I need a mic, so I'll just yell. So let's just say you found out tomorrow that Vans was no longer relevant, it was no longer being embraced by the core community. What would be the first thing you would do as a brand?
Did everybody hear the question? Let's say tomorrow that you hear from the street that you're no longer relevant to your core constituency. Is that accurate, Sean? What would you do? All right. I have a real-life example. Back in 2004, when Steve Murray took over as the president of Vans, we had that exact problem. I remember going on a 5-city tour and going into core shops in San Francisco, in Salt Lake City, in Seattle, in New York, and you could barely find Vans. You couldn't find a carpet, a shoe shelf, an open clothes sign, let alone a shoe. And when you did, you just went you did this. It was not a pretty situation. The way that Vans resolved that issue was by going back inside of ourselves and looking at our DNA. Okay? The DNA of Vans is our classic footwear. It's the waffle sole, the side stripe, the checkerboard, the heel tab. It's the things that made us iconic in the first place. And we had completely lost touch with our inner being, okay? So when I say be self-aware as one of my things up there, I think that we were forced to look inward and become self-aware. When we started that effort, our classics catalog, our classic footwear catalog that we showed to retailers was a pamphlet. It was like a Z-fold. It was like 6 pages. Now it's far and away the lion's share of our business. But going through that process, and Steve Murray can be a mean SOB. He was so tough on us about really making sure that we were being honest with ourselves about who we were and what we were good at and what our reason for being was and why we were around after 40 years in business. That inward looking and being real honest and reminding ourselves of things like the half cab and how important those are to who Vans is. And the meaning of the heel tab, that off-the-wall logo, what off-the-wall means. That kind of going back inside ourselves and looking at what the true structure of our DNA is what allowed us to do that. And I think we would probably have to do that again.
Talk about a little bit about like how long that process took. Is it 6 months? Was it 3 years? And a little bit about the people around you. When you looked around the room, and you're like, that dude doesn't believe, that guy does, that guy does. Did you try to convince him, or were you like, this isn't going to work, man. I got to find somebody that believes?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking it. The process of getting everybody back on the same page took about a year. And it was a year of countless offsites, the dreaded offsite at the Cerritos Sheraton. Do you know how many of those we did where we lock ourselves in a room, now this is a nice version of what we were in, lock ourselves in a room and not let ourselves out until we had agreed. And the rule that we set up is that we are going to come to some kind of a head on each of these major issues, and then you can either get on board and believe it and get the people that work for you to believe it, or you can sharpen up your resume and we won't have any hard feelings and you can go look for another job. So it was really, really important for us that we came to some kind of alignment. I talked about the guiding documents and those basic principles that everybody on the leadership team lives by. Once we left that year and we're moving out on our path, there was no doubt for any of us that the people around us, on the executive team were all on the same page. And I think that's a good point to make. The naysayers naysay in the meeting in front of us to our face, but then once we make a decision, get on board with it, or decide you're not on board with it and go someplace else. And we lost some really good people that way because they decided that it wasn't, the path we were going to go down wasn't for them, and respected them for making that decision. But about a year of the Sheraton Cerritos to make that happen. Glenn?
You guys live in surf and skate pretty successfully. Do you market that or see yourselves marketing it differently in the two, and how? Pardon me, how?
The question is, we live pretty successfully in surf and skate. Do we market differently to the two? Yeah, we do. We let each live on its own, and we don't really require any sort of involvement of one with the other whatsoever. When it comes to, on the front end of our operation, when it comes to the things that the shops see and the things that our consumers see, those live very independently of one another and only cross over when it's very organic, when Nathan Fletcher wants to go pool skating on the North Shore. It's just an organic thing. When Hosoi wants to paddle out for a surf, fine, who cares? But it's not at all forced for us, and those things live very organically in their own worlds inside of Vans. If you work in legal or finance or sourcing or operations or one of those functional back office efforts, our world comes much closer together. But from what goes out into the world, from product and marketing and sales and retail, it's very much independent thinking.
So I'd like to go back to that idea of growth and authenticity. And while you've done a great job of showing how Vans is authentic, I always think about action sports as having this heritage of small, upcoming companies. And I wonder if we take the idea of growth and authenticity and we look at it as an industry and start to see the industry growing and trying to maintain its authenticity, but at the same time that growth facilitates some business practices that make it pivot for new brands. How does the industry as a whole maintain authenticity as it grows?
That's a very good question, and we talk about it all the time. If you go into 5 action sports stores in every city in the United States and you see the same 5 brands and the same 5 products, we're going to die. I mean, we're going to get really boring and tired, and we're going to start to stink. We don't want to see that happen. Vans accomplishes that by giving back, and we try to do that as much as we possibly can, while at the same time maintaining the objectives we have for our own brand. And I'll give you an example that I'm proud of, the Vans Downtown Showdown. We have a skateboarding contest where we invite all of the skateboard companies, the board companies, to get together with their teams and their marketing groups and come up with ideas for obstacles. And the most creative, interesting, fun-to-ride obstacles, we fund the building of those. We bring those visions to execution. We put them on the back lot of Paramount Studios, and then we have a contest where the teams ride each other's obstacles, and the teams get to brand the obstacles themselves. So whether it's Girl doing one or Habitat doing one or whoever it is, they get to brand them, and it's just Vans bringing that to the world through our webcasts, our television shows, all the stuff that we do. But I think giving back is a big part of it. You got to feed some of what you get back into the pool to help foster, the rising tide that floats all of our boats. And I think that's the way that we do it. And something that Steve Van Doren, the son of the founder who I work with at Vans, has taught me is what an important part of our company that is. And he'll be the first guy to explain to you 400 things that we try to do to always give back. And I think as long as the big brands are reinvesting some of what they're making back into the culture and the sports themselves, that there will be the opportunity for the next Volcom or the next Ruka, the next Insight to come up in our world. Maybe didn't answer all of your question, but at least it's a credible example of something that Vans is doing. In terms of getting floor space for you, I don't know if Vans can.
Well, I think of Damon, right? He's over there and he's got a brand. He's trying to get it in, surf shops. And you've got, a large build out that makes it, and you're not alone, right? Like you want to protect that floor space.
Yeah.
At the same time, we all agree we need newness. If you look at other industries, you might have a company like Google that will take a huge chunk of money and they'll create a fund that they'll use to actually incubate new companies because they know that it's better for the long-term growth of their business space. Right. But our industry seems to not have that.
We won't do that directly, but I'll tell you that the skate and surf brands participate pretty heavily in their manufacturers organization. Surf has ASEMA and skate has IASC. And those are organizations, I think, that can be helpful to small brands in understanding what makes some of the bigger brands successful. And that's where big brands do contribute time, money, ideas, resources to try to help the greater good. Am I gonna give up floor space at Jack's for a small brand that's competing with us? That might be asking a little too much, to be honest. But are we going to contribute to SEMA or IASC to ensure that there's tools and business resources out there for small companies to understand how to get insurance, how to get a factor, how to start marketing your brand, those kind of things? I think that's a good place where we can all share in rising all the boats. Any other questions? Jeff?
Can you talk a little bit about how getting everybody aligned along the lines of those 5 things you listed earlier in the presentation, making it easier to run the company and become more efficient, because everybody knew what to do.
Oh my God, there's no way it was easier. You're kidding me. Yeah. He was asking if aligning the leadership of the company made it easier for us to achieve growth. We couldn't have grown the way that we have over the past 6 years without alignment among the executive team. There's no doubt about that. But what has it been easy? No. It's been anything but easy. Any other questions? Back in the back? Sorry, I can't see. Oh, what's up, Graphy?
Hey, you stopped at JCPenney on sort of your distribution there, and just in your opinion, a company like Target is doing so much to try and somehow be relative to the action sports market. In some ways, they're already kind of way cooler than Target, especially in the JCPenney. How do you decide that JCPenney is where you stop, or are you considering going on to the next level if they're going to continue to get Sean and Chloe and the motor guys that they have and everything we got going on?
Okay, so why stop at JCPenney's and Kohl's when there's guys like Target and Walmart out there that are trying, and even Costco that have action sports brands in them already? Yeah, again, I wouldn't suggest that the decision that we've made for Vans makes sense for anybody else in this room. I was just explaining how we set our distribution, so I'm not advocating that position for anybody. If it's right for your brand to be in Target, more power to you. There's things about Target that I think are awesome. There's things that I can't stand. So, but for Vans, for who we are as a company, we've made a decision that we would rather spend more time and energy growing our business from the mall up than more mainstream. It's more important for us to be more aspirational, we don't play as much in the price value equation that consumers in that thing are looking for. We find that when you go into the Costco, Target, Walmart environment, that people are looking for a deal. And we're not a deal-oriented brand. Lowest prices every day, is that the Walmart motto? Okay, so we don't really play in that world very well. So for us, because we don't sell on price as much, it's harder for us. And JCPenney's and Kohl's are excellent national partners for us that really have embraced the kind of products that we want to put in their store and our ability to tell our brand story in their environment. But it was just a brand decision for us to focus more up. We'd rather grow our business with Zoomies and Journeys, let's say, and the massive amount of power that they have in malls around the country, than looking for new resources that are more price-driven. And again, it's just Van's way of thinking about it. Oh, I'm sorry, just one second. Am I out of time? I don't want to, if everybody's got to go. Okay, we'll make this the last question, sorry. Very good question is, once the executive team is aligned on making changes or growing, how do you transmit that through the rest of your organization? And Vans is a big organization. One step at a time is the answer. It can't happen overnight. The good thing that we have going for us is the people that work at our company believe in our brand. Most of the people that work at Vans will tell you a story about their first pair of Vans and why they love Vans. Okay, so there is that emotional connection that already exists in the organization, and the people there are looking for guidance, and they're looking for vision from the leaders, I think. And when we were able to share with them a clear vision of how we're going to move forward and how we're going to achieve sustainable growth while at the same time remaining true to who we are as a brand and constantly reminding ourselves about that first pair of shoes and why we love Vans in the first place, then I think when you can express the vision and share and be able to document the discipline to stay on one path, then you bring more people into the fold. So it's a process. Okay, well, great questions. I'll hang out after if there's any more, but thank you guys very much. Thank you to Group Y for having me.
Well, that concludes the 2010 Action Sports Conference. Let's give a big round of applause for Doug and all of our speakers.